You are looking at a live picture of Lower Manhattan at 11 o'clock East Coast time on a day of tragedy and terror in the United States. You're looking at what remains of the World Trade Center in Lower Manhattan. Earlier this morning, just before 9 o'clock and just after 9 o'clock, two planes and individual attacks struck each tower of the World Trade Center, causing gaping holes in both towers. You're looking at a tape now after the first impact, and there is the second impact of a large jet flown, we now believe, deliberately into the second tower. It was a short time after that the towers collapsed. And then there was an attack in Washington, D.C. We now have confirmed reports that a plane crashed into the Pentagon. We have no reports of confirmed injuries or death. However, it's clear officials all across the country are now saying this is a deliberate terrorist attack on the United States. As Tom has put it so far this morning, this is a declaration of war by terrorists against the United States.
And of course, we should mention, by the way, Tom, before we talk about terrorism, that another large plane crashed as well, just north of Somerset County Airport, 80 miles southeast of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. It was a Boeing 767 that crashed around 10 o'clock this morning, and it is unclear whether the crash was related to the other crashes that took place this morning.
President Bush is en route back to Washington. The State Department has been evacuated. There's been that attack on the Pentagon. That has been evacuated. The White House has been evacuated. There will be an emergency meeting of the National Security Council. This is the most serious attack on the United States since Pearl Harbor. There has never been a terrorist attack of this magnitude, in fact, on any country in the world so far as we can tell. The untold loss of life in New York alone. We only know that there have been hundreds of burn victims brought to various hospitals. Both Twin Trade Tower centers have collapsed to the ground. That's a densely populated area, obviously. We don't know the number of casualties yet at the Pentagon, and we don't know the number of deaths in that plane that went down, as Katie pointed, north of Pittsburgh. And
what we've left out a piece of information, we know for a fact that one of these planes that was crashed into the World Trade Center was hijacked from Boston this morning. It was American Airlines Flight 11 en route from Boston to Los Angeles. We had reports that it had been diverted to JFK, and a short time later, perhaps while feigning a landing at JFK, it veered dramatically into the World Trade Center.
All air travel has been stopped. Airports have been closed across the country to planes departing. In terms of planes that are en route, it is unclear if they've made emergency landings or if they're reaching their final destinations. The White House has been evacuated, the State Department, the CIA has been evacuated. Of course, many, many buildings in Manhattan and Lower Manhattan have been evacuated as well.
And transatlantic flights to this country are being diverted to Canada. Still, no claim of responsibility that is verifiable or credible at this time. Yasser Arafat has condemned this attack, saying it's shocking and appalling.
Of course, we should mention back in February of 1993 was when that bomb went off in the garage of the World Trade Center, killing 6 people, injuring 1,000 people. And that, of course, was an unbelievable scene. But compared to this
is what they intended to do back then.
Minor. Let's go to Bob Hager, who has some information for us. Bob?
Katie, I was just thinking as you commented there about the various planes involved. The one that we know of so far, because it's confirmed by American Airlines, is that Flight 11, which had been scheduled from Boston's Logan Airport to Los Angeles, that Flight 11 was hijacked this morning, and it is presumed that it may have been one of the planes that went into one of the towers of the World Trade Center. There were at least 2 more planes involved in this, because the other tower was hit, and then the Pentagon was also, there were eyewitness accounts that it was a plane that went into the Pentagon. But so far, we don't know the sources of those planes, whether they were commercial planes that had been hijacked, whether they were private planes, whether they'd been hijacked at all. And I would point out the report from Somerset County, Pennsylvania, is so far just local authorities commenting. The FAA has not confirmed that crash, so we're waiting to hear more, and I'm hearing just now, bear with me,
Bob.
FAA is now confirming So this adds to those earlier rumors that there are several airplanes that are unaccounted for. So there were some rumors that there might have been other planes hijacked that we didn't yet know the outcome of it. And now the FAA is confirming that. There are several, was the word I heard, several planes that are unaccounted for that were evidently hijacked and has not come to a conclusion yet.
Bob, we'd like you to get a list of as many of those as you can, as specifically as possible. We're going to show you now, we're going to replay a tape of the second attack on the World Trade Centers in slow-mo. There's the plane. As you can see, a large airline-type plane. And now the collision. Flown deliberately into the second one.
When they say several, Bob, do they give you any indication of what they're talking about?
Several is the description that I had, and that was just passed on to me a moment ago, so I wasn't talking personally to the FAA person, but several is the account I had.
And Bob, American Airlines, the Flight 11 out of Boston, do we know what exactly kind of plane that was and perhaps how many people were on board?
We do not yet, but I think we're going to get some additional information from American. They were supposed to be adding comment to this from Dulles Airport here in a few moments, so we might learn a little bit more about that. But right now, it's very important to worry about rumors and so forth. I'd like to hear some more confirmation that a plane really has crashed in Pennsylvania, for instance, since the FAA hasn't confirmed that. But I think one needs to be very careful here in this chaotic situation.
We have a report here that Osama bin Laden, who is often identified as the world's leading terrorist, warned 3 weeks ago that he and his followers would carry out an unprecedented attack on U.S. interests for its support of Israel. An Arab journalist with access said to him Tuesday in London.
Abdel Bari Atwan, editor of the London-based Al-Qud Al-Arabi newspaper, said Islamic fundamentalists led by bin Laden was almost certainly behind the attack of the World Trade Center in New York. Quote, it's most likely the work of Islamic fundamentalists. Osama bin Laden warned 3 weeks ago that he would attack American interests in an unprecedented attack, a very big one, Atwan told Reuters.
He has interviewed bin Laden, and he maintains close contacts with his followers, according to Reuters. So that's the first report that we've had that Osama bin Laden may have been responsible. Obviously, it was a very sophisticated organization, carefully coordinated. It had to have its origins in this country. Louis Freeh, the FBI director, as he left office, said that his continuing great concern with the number of terrorist cells that exist in America, not just in some shadowy enclave in Afghanistan or somewhere in the subcontinent, but they've taken root in this country because it's so easy to get here.
Let's talk a little bit more about Osama bin Laden, because as you say, he was associated with the 1993 World Trade Center bombing. Why don't we talk about him and what he has done here in the United States, Tom, to give people a little bit of background.
Good morning. On a day that is not such a good day here in Washington, D.C., and indeed in the entirety of the United States of America, we are broadcasting locally now, continuing the report of the terrorist attacks, what are believed to be terrorist attacks, in at least 2 cities in this country right now. There is also a report now that an airliner has crashed in Pennsylvania as well. I'm Jim Bantz. I'm with Susan Kidd. And there are a lot of things that folks need to know about what's going on in the local area as well, Susan.
Absolutely. We've been watching this story unfold in New York and here in the Washington area with that plane hitting the Pentagon. But now there are some of the everyday matters of life that need to be taken care of. Schools are being closed. We're told that all universities in the Washington area have canceled classes for the day. But the D.C. school children have not been sent home, but for the moment are being told to stay in school. Prince George's County schools will let out a couple of hours early. Of course, there is heightened security all over the Washington area. Police and fire personnel being called in and told to stand by for very long shifts today.
We can tell you that the museums in the city, in the Smithsonian museums, have been closed. The Kennedy Center has been closed. Transportation officials have just reported that anybody trying to get out of town might do well to take the Southeast-Southwest Expressway, Southeast-Southwest Freeway. We are reading now that they're trying to clear the routes on the 14th Street Bridge. All of this because, of course, government offices in the city have been closed. They have been shut down. And as a consequence, all the employees have been told to go home. It is not in a staggered means, and so therefore, come on, bring it in. So therefore, the roads are just a mess, as you might expect, as people try to get out of Washington and to their homes.
We've got a rush hour in early morning.
Indeed.
Again, we're told it's unprecedented. All the symbols of Washington have been shut down. All of the CIA has been evacuated. The National Security Agency people have been moved. All those folks sent home. Only personnel that are considered essential still working. And, of course, many of those areas have moved. Megan McGrath has been out at the Pentagon for some time this morning. She's with us live to tell us what's happening there now. Megan?
Well, if you take a look behind me, you can see the flames and really the rescue effort that's going on here. They're down there. The emergency crews are down there just basically hosing off the section of the Pentagon that has collapsed, and that's what they have been doing for quite some time now. That will give you an idea of just how tremendous this explosion was. Now, we are hearing from eyewitnesses who were in the area at the time that they saw an aircraft slam into the south side of the Pentagon this morning. There was one eyewitness who said that there were no markings at all on the side of the plane. And let's take a look at some of the VO from when it just happened. There was a tremendous fireball, and actually you could feel a disturbance in the air. We were actually in the area at the time. We didn't see the impact, or we didn't see any planes in the area. However, what we did see was a huge fireball just rise from the area of the Pentagon, and we felt an actual disturbance in the air. We glanced over. We knew immediately the area where the flames were coming from, and just hightailed it over here. And it was just a tremendous explosion. You can see by taking a look at the Pentagon, the side of it, the tremendous amount of damage that has been done here. Literally a section of the building has collapsed upon itself. And of course, that poses a great risk, not only to the people who are inside. There has to be just tremendous devastation inside that building, but it has also been complicating the rescue efforts of the emergency personnel on the scene here. Now, when this happened, there were a number of people who came out of the Navy Annex, and some people who were in the area. We talked to one man who actually saw the impact of the plane. Here's what he had to say.
I was just casually looking out the corner, out of the window. In the corner of my eye, I saw what looked to be maybe a 20-passenger corporate jet, no markings on the side, coming in at a shallow angle like it was landing right into the side of the Pentagon. And then a huge fireball, perhaps 5 times the height of the Pentagon. And I was on the 5th floor, so we just automatically just ran to the stairs and went down the fire escape.
You were where? You were inside the Pentagon?
No, I was across 395 from the Pentagon in an office tower with, direct view of the Pentagon.
And kind of describe the trajectory. The plane was aimed straight at the building?
It was aimed straight at the building. There was an angle, perhaps. It looked like it was landing. I couldn't tell if the landing gear was up or down. I don't know if it was taking off or landing, but it flew right into the side of the Pentagon, and almost immediately a huge fireball.
And they were using helicopters here in the initial rescue effort on the scene. We saw Julie Carey, one of my colleagues, actually saw some people being transported out by helicopter. And we can only imagine the number of injuries and potential for death in this instance. We are not getting that information from where we stand. We've basically been in this spot all morning long. We are actually right off of Columbia Pike, and you can see the Pentagon off in the distance. There are some PR people here from the Pentagon, but they're not getting a whole lot of information about injuries at all either. The one bit of information, though, that they told us to pass on to people is to stay away from the area. We know that there are a lot of folks who live in the area, who have loved ones who work at the Pentagon. You are not going to be allowed to get anywhere near that building. So really I know this is a difficult thing to say because there are a lot of anxious people out there, but really you're not going to be able to get any information by coming here to the Pentagon. The best advice here is to stay put and monitor the news broadcasts, and they will be giving out as much information as soon as they can get it. But if you come down here to the area, you're only going to make things more difficult. They are actually trying to clear people out of this area so that they can continue on with their emergency efforts. And I know that's a large request. There are a lot of very frantic people. They see the video, they see the fire, they see the damage, and of course they're thinking the worst when they have a loved one who works inside this building. The damage is tremendous. It is, when you consider just what this building is. This is the Pentagon. This is a secure building. It's a massive building, and you look at the side of it and you see this large section that has been taken out. And again, we are hearing reports that it was an aircraft. We've actually heard from 3 different people who saw an aircraft slam into the side of the building. And then, of course, this big, huge fireball, and the flames just kind of went throughout that entire section. And then I would say it was probably about 40 minutes later when actually that section started to collapse onto itself, and it just couldn't stand the strain and the damage anymore, and it simply collapsed. Now, emergency crews have just been hosing it down all morning long. That's really all we can tell you. I mean, it's certainly an unstable situation down there. They don't want to put their emergency crews in danger or jeopardy, but you know, certainly they want to get in there and they want to get the situation in hand, because we don't know who's inside that building, whether or not there are people trapped. We just don't have that information from here. But by looking at the building, I mean, you can only imagine how difficult a situation it is, and you hope for the best. But certainly they are preparing for the worst and are trying the best that they can to get this situation under control. Again, though,
Megan?
Stay out of the area. Yeah.
Megan, we have some information now that people might want to know about what has happened to the casualties at the Pentagon. In fact, we are told that people injured there are arriving now at Virginia Hospital Center, at Inova Alexandria Hospital, and at Inova Fairfax Hospital. Want to know that D.C. police say they are going to respond only to 911 calls, and they ask that anyone who sees anything suspicious should call them at 311. Anyone who sees anything suspicious, the D.C. police want you to call them at 311, but they're only going to respond to 911 calls. Also, we can tell you that Canal Road has been switched to one-way outbound traffic, and you can pretty much assume that almost everything in the area is closed. We'll give you a list of that in a couple of minutes. Right now, Tony Dorsey.
Actually, we have Jonathan Gaffney, who is with the Airport Authority, on the phone with us. Now, we understand that National Airport will be closed for at least 24 hours. Is that correct, Mr. Gaffney?
Correct, ma'am. Both National and Dulles will be closed for at least 24 hours. We've evacuated all of our buildings and all of our terminals, sent all employees home, and we'll be in that situation until at least 24 hours till we can further assess the entire situation.
Now, we know that air travel has been suspended across the country.
Correct.
Has there been any indication of how long that might last?
Oh, absolutely no idea. Obviously, being a situation that's a couple hours old, tough to say, but in response to all the uncertainty, we decided best for us to go ahead and close the 2 facilities until we get a really good idea of what's coming next.
Is there any military presence at the airport, sir?
Nothing I'm aware of, sir. I know all of our public safety have been recalled, and all of our essential employees have been recalled, but I'm not aware of any military folks on board.
Okay.
Mr. Gaffney, we understand that transatlantic flights are being sent to Canada. There are no doubt thousands of people now who have no idea what's going to happen with folks they were expecting to come
Correct.
into this area.
That's a great point.
Is there anywhere where they might get information, or are they just like many of us standing by?
I think the best place to go for information, obviously, is the airlines, but you know, to be honest, I think the entire network is just swamped with people looking for information, like passengers' families. I think best now people really have got to desperately try to be patient and let the system kind of work its way through, and hopefully as soon as possible, all the information will start getting out where these folks are.
And there are, of course, a lot of rumors. There is a lot of fear. This is an unprecedented attack on this country. But we're told that there are flights in the air. We've heard stories of flights headed this way for Washington. What is the situation with planes that are in the air now?
We just don't know, and frankly, we really wouldn't know that. The FAA, again, kind of the information is everywhere, but tough to get. The FAA would probably be the best folks that can kind of give you that information. All that I know is that all the planes are actually out on our runways. We're all pulled back to the gates, unloaded, and it's pretty quiet here right now.
All right, thank you, Jonathan
Yes,
Gaffney with the Airport Authority.
Some other information you want to know. Prince George's County schools are not closed, but classes are closing 2 hours early today. Montgomery County schools not closed, but all afternoon and evening events have been canceled. Arlington public schools are not closed, but children will be kept inside. Parents may pick them up if parents are concerned about that.
And what they're saying about the district schools is that they're on lockdown. We've not heard that children will be sent home early or At this point, they're all just there in school, and we've not heard about whether they'll be sent home early or how long they might stay in school.
Tony Dorsey is at National Airport. What's the situation, Tony?
Hey, Jim, it is a mass exodus here from Reagan National Airport. Let me just ask Phil Jacobs, my photographer, to transfer over here. You can see some of the smoke billowing from the Pentagon nearby. I am on the access road that leads from Crystal City Route 1 into the National Airport area. You can see car after car leaving the airport. A mass exodus underway now for about 2 hours. This is the tail end of the cars coming out of here. You can see the Airport Authority Police blocking the entranceway from Route 1, Crystal City, into the airport. We saw hundreds, literally hundreds of people walking out of the airport with their suitcases. We saw pilots who told stories of being on the runway, getting ready to take off and told to return to the terminal. You're looking at cars now here, people who were in the airport, who were working, who were told they had to leave the airport immediately. People at the airport were told that they had to get out. Employees, non-essential security officials. We saw all kinds of airline people walking down out of the airport immediately. They were not given time to get into their cars. Many of them were told they had to leave on foot, and they had their baggage, some of them pulling those little trolleys that you see often used inside the airport out here on the access road to Route 1, all of them going away toward Crystal City. A couple of minutes ago, we saw some big, heavy fire department foam trucks coming toward the airport. Obviously, they believe this is not just an evacuation. Obviously, they believe Reagan National Airport may be some kind of a target. That's why they are preparing. That's why they are getting everyone who is non-essential, who does not have to be here, out of here. This evacuation, as I said, has been underway for about a couple of hours now. People staying very, very calm. Officials not telling people anything about any rogue airline or airliner coming this way. They've been very, very quiet. They've just been telling people very calmly that they have to leave the airport. Taxi cab drivers who were trying to get to the passengers who heard about the mass exodus, who were trying to get to these passengers who needed rides, were even diverted away from the airport. That's how critical the situation is right now. No one seems to be telling us exactly why all of this is happening, but it's obvious with the Pentagon just less than a couple of miles from here. Obviously, we assume at this point the target of an attack. They suspect that Reagan National could as well be. So they are being very cautious at this time. We've seen national security people going to the airport. We've seen people in unmarked vehicles going very, very quickly to the airport. And everybody else, all non-essential security people, airline people, coming out. We talked to a pilot who said that he was on the taxi, getting ready to taxi. He was second for leaving the airport, and he was told abruptly, just turn around. He asked several questions to the tower, and he was told, do not ask any questions, turn your aircraft around, go back to the terminal immediately. And that's what he did. He had several hundred people on board. We've seen lots and lots of security all over the airport. This is a very tense, a very serious situation. But again, the Airport Authority, federal police, and other agencies are keeping it very calm.
Tony Dorsey, we appreciate it from National Airport. There are casualties at that plane crash or that terrorist attack at the Pentagon, what we assume to be a terrorist attack. And we noted that many of those casualties are being taken to area hospitals. Pat Lawson News is up in our newsroom now with more details on that. Pat?
Well, Jim and Susan, I just got off the phone with the representative of Inova Fairfax Hospital, Janice Moore, who tells me, of course, as you said, all hospitals in the area would be on alert. And they're on alert to receive mostly burn patients, because that's what they anticipate they'll be getting from the Pentagon. Fairfax just about 10 minutes ago, we believe, received its first burn patient. They've been on alert there since 9 o'clock this morning. The hospital has called in all of its personnel, all of its emergency staff. They've called in their surgical staff, their residents, their specialists. Everybody who works in the hospital has been asked to come to work today. The other thing they've done there is they have set up trauma teams in the emergency room, and they have cleared out their intensive care units of all patients who are no longer critical, who no longer need to be in ICU, whose cases, conditions can be managed in other units of the hospital, to make room in those ICU units for patients that may be coming in, victims that may be coming in from the Pentagon. They've also set up at Inova Fairfax makeshift ICU units around the hospital in the anticipation of perhaps more victims than they can handle in the ICUs that are already set up. Again, most of the patients they're anticipating will be coming in. They expect to be burn patients, and we expect that the scenario that we're seeing playing out at Inova Fairfax Hospital is one that will be replicated again at hospitals around this metropolitan area. We're in touch with all of them. We're getting them on the phone and finding out exactly what kinds of cases they're getting in, and they are in a standby mode, and they say they have absolutely, of course, no idea how many people to expect. So everybody is on high alert and very much on edge. Jim, Susan, back to you.
Pat Lawson-Muse, thank you very much. We have on our phone now Mark Pettit. He was at the Pentagon. He was an eyewitness to what happened there today. Mr. Pettit, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Can you tell us what you saw?
Yeah, I was actually sitting in traffic on Route 110 on my way to work. I work across the street. And it was an American Airlines plane that came in and hit the Pentagon. I believe it was a 737. I could be mistaken. It might have been a 707, but it was definitely a commercial plane.
And about what time did this happen, Mr. Pettit?
Probably about 9:35, 9:40.
Right. And what happened after that? I mean, what was traffic stopped at that point, or tell me what occurred after that?
Actually, I was almost to my office, and I saw the plane coming down. It actually came up 395, and it just went over the horizon, and then it came back in front of a bridge where I was sitting, and I knew it was going to hit. I mean, I'd already heard about the World Trade Center, and the next thing you know, it was just a huge explosion, black smoke everywhere, and I parked my car and got out. By the time I got out, all the buildings in the area had just come out into the street, and everybody was seeing what was happening, and all you could see was just billowing black smoke everywhere.
All right. Mark Pettit, we appreciate it. An eyewitness to that airplane crash at the Pentagon.
There are several planes that are unaccounted for, and this has gotten everyone on edge all morning long. We should tell you that one of those flights is American Flight 77 out of Dulles Airport to Los Angeles. Again, that flight is unaccounted for. American Flight 77 out of Dulles to Los Angeles. It was an American 757 that, an American flight that crashed into the World Trade Center this morning, and this is an American flight out of Dulles, again unaccounted for, Flight 77 Dulles to L.A.
We can tell you that as we have reported, and you might want to know, much of Washington has been, in fact, shut down. Many facilities have closed. Howard University, all the museums and the tourism spots in Washington, D.C., the Kennedy Center. Of course, all federal offices have been closed. And as a result, the roads are in a terrible mess. We had wanted to get a report from our traffic reporters, but we're told that their building has also been shut down. Rosalind's Children's Center is shut down. All the airports nationwide, as we have reported, have been closed. The Capitol is on lockdown. The Hampton Roads Port has been closed. American University closed. All the national monuments, of course, are closed. Area schools are in lockdown. And all federal government offices, of course, have been shut down as a result of what's been happening here today.
We've been given some information again about American Airlines. We mentioned that flight out of Dulles to Los Angeles. The wire services, AP, is reporting that American says it's lost 2 of its aircraft. That means those aircraft are unaccounted for. There are 156 people aboard those 2 planes. As we mentioned, one of them, American Flight 77, Dulles to Los Angeles, unaccounted for by American Airlines.
On the assumption that there might be somebody just joining us, let us go back. Just before 9 o'clock this morning, a commercial airplane, crashed into one of the towers at the World Trade Center in Lower Manhattan. Shortly after that, just after 9, a second plane crashed into the second tower of the World Trade Center. Then an aircraft crashed near the Pentagon, just outside the Pentagon in Washington, D.C. Government buildings in Washington, including the Capitol and the White House, were evacuated. Officials cited a credible threat of a terrorist attack. The Federal Aviation Administration then shut down all aircraft takeoffs nationwide. International flights coming to the United States were diverted to Canada. American Airlines says one of the planes that crashed into the Trade Center was American Airlines Flight 11, which was hijacked after it had taken off from Boston on its way to Los Angeles. There had been a report that a car bomb had exploded outside the State Department in Washington, D.C., but that report has been knocked down. Federal Protective Services say that that did not happen. The financial markets suspended trading in the wake of all of this. In other words, the markets have been shut down, air travel has been shut down, the government has, in a sense, has effectively been shut down because of these what are assumed to be terrorist attacks in New York and also here in Washington, D.C.
So what we have is thousands of people on the road trying to get out of Washington, and now we learn that Virginia Railway Express says train service out of Washington has been shut down. So it's people are getting out of the area with great difficulty, and the roads, of course, are clogged.
And, of course, there are casualties. There are untold casualties. We have no idea now what the numbers are. In New York alone, truly, they must be absolutely staggering, because after the planes crashed into the World Trade Center, those buildings, or at least portions of those buildings, just simply collapsed.
There are some, what, 50,000 people who work in the World Trade Center, and then you had hundreds and hundreds of fire and rescue emergency personnel down there trying to help people. It is going to be, it is really going to be staggering to see those numbers of deaths and casualties.
What you're seeing there is not a video game, ladies and gentlemen. That's what actually happened this morning when the second plane crashed into the World Trade Center tower this morning, shortly after 9 o'clock this morning, and then a short time after that, a portion of both of the towers, one and then the other, collapsed into the streets of New York City. It is a horrible situation up there now. This is a live picture. This is not the New York skyline that any of us are used to seeing, nor that any of us possibly imagined we ever would see as a result of those attacks on the World Trade Center this morning. Megan McGrath is now near the Pentagon now. Megan?
Yeah, if you take a look behind me, you can see we're getting some movement of some of the, we're assuming they're employees of the Pentagon over by that tree line there by the exit ramp. Just within the last couple of minutes, they really started moving people back. They were a little bit closer to the building just a few minutes ago, and then emergency workers started to push them back, and actually now it looks like they're moving forward again. Now, from where we're standing, we can't hear what's going on. We're not hearing what they're being told, but something is being done with the relocation of some of the employees that are from the Pentagon, and you can see for yourself exactly what is happening. Now, in terms of the building itself, you can see that collapsed section. There's all kinds of smoke still coming from the area, and there's a little bit of flame. I can see a little bit of some flames in the section down there by the right-hand side, but for the most part, what we're seeing at this point is smoke. All morning long, of course, we've been seeing emergency crews racing to the scene. They have the entire area cordoned off. We are seeing people who have just abandoned their cars right where they were on the highways and the freeways, and they're actually, many of them have gotten out of their cars and are walking to where we are and to other vantage points so that they can see exactly what is going on. Now, I can tell you this caught us by surprise. It was this morning, right after the event at the World Trade Center, where photographer John Greenwood and I were actually making our way to National Airport in light of what had happened in New York. We were up on 395 right here by the Pentagon when all of a sudden we heard a loud boom. There was sort of a disturbance in the air, and then you saw this huge fireball just come up from down by the Pentagon. You saw it rise above up into the air for just a tremendous distance, and just knowing the area, we knew immediately that it was the Pentagon, and went racing toward that area. And as you can imagine, it was just absolute confusion and chaos here. No one expected anything like this to happen, obviously, and there was a lot of confusion about exactly what had happened. Now, what we have been hearing from people who were here on the scene at the time of the explosion is that there was some kind of a plane. We've talked to a number of different people who described seeing a plane go straight for the south side of the Pentagon and make that impact. And as you can see from the video and from the live scene behind me, it did tremendous damage. That'll just give you an idea of the sheer impact of the plane on the building. It caught on fire. There was that huge fireball, and then a section collapsed. Now, actually, we've got another eyewitness for you. Joining me is Terry Cohen. You were actually working right near the Pentagon. Tell me what you saw.
Well, we were outside. We were in a little construction trailer, and we were sitting having a meeting, and we heard this boom. The building shook. The ceiling tiles fell out of the ceiling, and we ran out. We kind of dazed, grabbed our hard hats, ran out, and there was just smoke. You couldn't get to. We tried to get to where it was to see what it was. You couldn't get there because it was just thick. You couldn't see anything but just smoke. And we were just, it was 2 seconds after it happened, and we just sort of, people were screaming, "Run, what is it, what is it?" So we headed away from the building, not knowing where to go, and there was just confusion everywhere. Then 10 seconds later, people came up and were saying, in security, saying, "Just get away from the building, we don't know what it is, just get away from it." But as we walked away, as we started getting away, there were people on the road, because we were very close to the exit, and they were saying, "Oh my God, did you see that? It was an airplane, it was an airplane." Just came from, they kept saying it was a big airplane. I kept thinking, I thought maybe it was just from National Airport, an airplane had hit us. 15 minutes later, there was a terrible explosion again, and we just went through the tunnel and away.
What were you being told by security personnel, or were you being told anything?
We weren't being told anything. It was chaotic. People were just running. There was a security guy just saying, screaming to me, "Run!" I said, "But where do you want me to go?" He said, "Just get away from the building," because you didn't know where to go. So we were fenced in. We were only about 100 feet away from it. We were fenced in, ran out the only gate that was, and just walked away from it. Well, actually ran away. It was very loud, very crazy, and very smoky.
And I would assume, like a lot of people in this area, you're basically stuck here at this point. All of the roads are shut down. It doesn't look like anybody's being allowed to leave the area.
The cell phones are down. You can't get away. You can't get to your cars. We've been walking ever since the beginning, and we've just walked in circles. I bet we've walked 2 miles. You can't use your cell phone, and you really can't go anywhere. So we're stuck here. We don't have any information.
Did you ever think that you would be in a situation like this? I mean, this is the Pentagon. This is a very secure building. It's a building, a symbol for this country. Did you ever imagine in a million years that something like this would happen?
You know, the funny thing, when I came here, I work in a lot of secured buildings, and that was the first question I asked. Where is the alert sign? There's always alert sign. And I walked this building all the time. I kept thinking, where's the alert sign? I went in the new wedge, the old wedge. I couldn't find it. So I asked somebody with a military uniform, and he said, "Oh, this building's so safe. We don't post that." So I felt very comfortable in here. Where in other buildings I do work, I do keep up with what's going on in the building. So I never in a million years expect this to happen here at the Pentagon.
What were the people around you doing and saying? Was it pretty calm, or were people really getting rather emotional? We saw a few people running, but from our vantage point, we didn't get a really good look. What were people doing?
I hate to say it, but I did fall apart when it first happened. I was very frightened. This doesn't happen in America. I guess it does. I was concerned that I was going to die, and I didn't know what to do. People were hurt around me. I didn't know what I was going to do. I felt guilty being here, knowing I know people that are probably still in there. My workers were there. I don't like walking away from it, but I can't get there. I can't help them. It's very chaotic. I'm going to have to take some emergency training. I don't know what to do in this situation. I feel very guilty that I'm not back there helping.
You said you saw people hurt. Tell me what kinds of injuries you were seeing, and do you have any idea about the numbers of people that...
No idea. Nothing at all. And the only thing hurt we've seen is people coming out of the building. I mean, people in ambulances.
All from that general section of the building? How are they getting them out? Did you get to see how, I mean, are they...
We were far gone by the time they did that. We were the first people on site because we were only 100 feet from it. It was total smoke. You could not get 15 feet near the airplane because you couldn't see. So how are they getting those people out from that airplane? I have no clue, because you could not see.
Could you see the actual airplane as you were retreating and getting out of the area? Did you see the wreckage of the airplane?
You could not see. It was too thick of smoke, and I should have been able to see on a regular day. I would have just seen it right there. I could not see the trailers and the construction equipment that was sitting there and the construction material. I could not see that.
Okay, Terry Cohen, thank you so much for joining us. And so you heard from yet another eyewitness of the chaos that occurred here in the wake of all of this, it was, of course, quite unexpected. You never expect something like this to happen. And then suddenly people were faced with this tremendous emergency situation. The building was on fire. People were unsure of exactly what happened, whether it was a bomb, whether it was a plane. It was just, there were so many unknowns, so many questions. And people were literally just running. They just wanted to get away from the scene and get away as quickly as possible. You can see that they are still hosing down that section of the building. I can say that they have been doing that basically nonstop the entire time. We have seen, you know, a few flare-ups here and there, and I got to tell you that after that initial impact, we did hear two lesser explosions. The first one came about 10 minutes after the initial big explosion that we saw, and then there was another one, I would say, and this is a rough estimate here, about a half hour later. Now, again, those explosions, though, they were different than that original explosion. The original explosion, as we felt it and heard it and saw the huge cloud, that was quite a strong explosion. These other ones, you heard it, but then when you looked at the area, you didn't see anything that was different. You didn't see any additional clouds of smoke or any additional flames. So exactly what those two smaller explosions were, we don't know. I mean, it could be a variety of reasons. You could have all kinds of, you could have gas lines in there. You could have, a number of different things inside that building that would cause that. We just don't know. But we have heard a total of three impacts. So that's basically the situation from here. And, of course, we're going to continue to monitor things. And as soon as we get any more information or if anything changes here on the scene, we'll, of course, bring it to you as soon as we can. Back to you all in the studio.
All right, Megan McGrath, thank you.
We should tell you that we don't know anything about this plane that crashed into the Pentagon, but we do know that a United flight crashed near Pittsburgh. It's not known whether that flight, that crash, is connected to any of these others. And we do know that American Airlines is saying that it has lost two flights. Two flights are unaccounted for. One of them, number 77, out of Dulles to Los Angeles.
Jerry Edwards is in Metro traffic now. They had a sprinkler problem down there, I understand. Jerry, you're back in the office now?
Yeah, I'll tell you, Jim, Susan, in a very cruel twist, we were evacuated out of our place here because of what we thought was a fire. And on a day like today, tensions are running very high. Fortunately, it was just a broken sprinkler. We're back in. A little winded, but let's get to business. Let's go out to the VDOT campus and tell you what's going on right now. Notice the right side of your screen. That is southbound 395, still very heavy and very slow. Generally speaking, we're talking about traffic that is just absolutely horrific. Here's some more live pictures coming from the Pentagon area. The camera that was actually on Washington Boulevard at the Pentagon actually was on its side shortly after the plane hit the Pentagon, and we were unable to use it, but it was just a very unbelievable scene. Let's check the Beltway south of town. A lot of folks are going home. It is an afternoon rush hour, in essence, at 11:40 in the morning. This is the Beltway outer loop. Before Telegraph Road, this traffic is very slow all the way to the Woodrow Wilson Bridge. There are no accidents. We've been getting a lot of calls, people wondering whether the bridges, the Wilson Bridge and American Legion Bridge, are open. They are indeed. Let's look at the 14th Street Bridge up 395. And a lot of folks notice all the pedestrians there on the side. Now, we were told that there was absolutely no traffic being allowed across the 14th Street Bridge inbound. Obviously, coming off the GW Parkway, some traffic. These folks are either going into town or out of town. The outbound 14th Street Bridge, the outbound Memorial, we are told, are open. Inbound traffic, only pedestrians are being allowed at this time. Let's go to Maryland to take a live look and see how we're doing. We're packed in very tightly. Again, there are no accidents, broken down cars or anything like that, but we're dealing with just basically an afternoon rush hour at this point. Let me tell you, we have received word that MARC and VRE have ceased operations at this point, and we'll keep you updated on that. As far as the rush hour, or what we have now is a rush hour, everyone's just going to have to take it very, very cautiously. Additional time, obviously, tensions are running extremely high. And we'll be here as often as we can to keep you updated. Back to you.
All right, Jerry, thank you. We appreciate it.
As we said, United Airlines has confirmed one of its flights has crashed near Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. That happened around 10 o'clock this morning. It was en route from Newark, New Jersey to San Francisco. It is not known whether that crash is related to the others this morning, the two planes that crashed into the World Trade Center and one that crashed into the Pentagon. But a few minutes ago, a Pittsburgh television station spoke on the telephone with reporter Rick Earl, who just received some new information about this crash.
Yeah, David, I just spoke with a 911 operator at the emergency dispatching center in Greensburg, and he tells quite an amazing story this morning. He says at about 9:58 this morning, his center, his emergency dispatching center, which is based in Greensburg, received a cellular telephone call from a man claiming to be a passenger on this United Airlines flight. He said at this point that the plane was being hijacked, and he was back near the bathroom of the airplane. He repeatedly said this is not a hoax, that the plane was being hijacked, that he needed help, and 911 operators at this point were trying to gather more information from him. The gentleman then relayed that there had been an explosion. He just heard an explosion on the plane. He saw a cloud of white smoke, and then seconds after that last transmission on that cellular telephone, the gentleman, the line went dead, and 911 lost the cellular caller at that point. That was at 9:58 this morning. About 45 minutes later, the 911 center received a call from a resident in the Shanksville area of Somerset County, which is off Route 30. We understand it's about 8 miles east of Jennerstown, saying that there was a large cloud of smoke and apparently something had crashed. So that is the very latest information. The 911 operator told me that it is apparently a 757 jet, a United Airlines commercial jet with approximately 90 people on board. He said it crashed apparently in a heavily wooded area. Again, at this point, no indication of any of the injuries, the extent of the injuries.
That is a report from from Pittsburgh, a reporter, Rick Earl, who was talking about a report of a cell phone conversation, a 911 call about the possible terrorist attack on that plane that crashed near Pittsburgh this morning. This is unprecedented, what happened here. Susan, you had something?
No, I was going to say that this plane, we don't know whether this is connected with the other two, but this crash has been confirmed. It was a United flight from Newark to San Francisco. Crashed after about 45 minutes after the one that hit the Pentagon.
It's been a long time since Washington has seen anything like this. Indeed, not since 1968, when 14th Street erupted in fire after the assassination of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Traffic in the area now is said to be hellacious. There are a lot of concerns about safety and security in our town. The town has been shut down as it regards government offices. All employees have been told to go home. Connecticut and K is pretty much the center of downtown in our city. Pat Collins is standing by there now. Pat, what's the situation?
Jim, I'm at Connecticut and K Street. A tremendous exodus out of Washington going on now. It's been going on for some hours now. Let's take a look down K Street. You can see how congested it is. It has been that way for some time. Out there trying to direct traffic, a Golden Triangle volunteer. This is a frequent sight. You can see officials, law enforcement officials coming and going to the White House, which is only a couple blocks away. There's sirens on, people trying to let them through, but a tremendous crush of traffic and people trying to make their way home on foot, by car, using the metro. It has been going on for some time. We spent almost a half an hour just trying to move one block. If you know somebody who is trying to leave the city, you should tell them the best way to do that is to get on a road either north, east, or south, but do not try to go across the city. Don't try to cross the city diagonally. It's best to go north, east, west, or south directly on one road and then make your way to your destination once you get out of this tremendous traffic jam. You can see, again, more officials coming and going, sirens on. They have set up an enormous perimeter around the White House, people making their way on foot. Occasionally, we've seen them stop at the window of some of the electronic stores. They're looking at television, watching the reports on what's happening. Most of the people, though, walking, trying to get away from the center of downtown. As you know, the government is closed. Most businesses are closed down. Many of the shops and restaurants, of course, are closed down. This is like a rush hour to the second power here in midday Washington as people try to get out of the center of downtown, try to make their way home. Also try to get in touch with the rest of their family, and that's a problem because cell phone service is really clogged. It is almost impossible to make a cell phone call from downtown. Jim?
All right, Pat Collins, we appreciate it. We have some information now that all the theme parks in Orlando, Florida, have in fact been closed.
There are buildings all over the country being shut down, landmarks. It has echoed across the nation.
Yeah, there's great concern at all the national monuments for obvious reasons. American Airlines has also had a terrible day. They have confirmed that they lost 2 of their planes today. They are assumed to be the 2 that went into the World Trade Center towers. One was Flight 11, a 767 from Boston to Los Angeles. We're told there were 81 passengers on board that plane. 9 flight attendants and 2 pilots were on board. Also, Flight 77, a Boeing 757 from Dulles to Los Angeles with 58 passengers, 4 flight attendants, and 2 pilots. Now, in their report of losing these 2 planes, they don't make any mention of the attacks in New York City and the one at the Pentagon. But I want to give you a number in case you have someone that you care about who was on or who you think might have been on one of those flights today. American Airlines has released a response number. It is 1-800-245-0999. That's 1-800-245-0999 if you're concerned about anyone that might have been on either of those flights, Flight 11 or also Flight 77 American Airlines flights.
I'm curious, though, if the flight out of Dulles might have been the one that hit the Pentagon, because the first plane that hit the World Trade Center was said to be a small plane. The second one, a large passenger plane, and we've not heard anything about what kind of plane crashed into the Pentagon about 30, 40 minutes after the attack in New York City.
No, we don't know, and neither do we want to speculate at this time in terms of what might have happened.
We can tell you that schools continue to close in this area. Many universities now canceling their evening classes. Montgomery County Public Schools will be closing 1.5 hours early. We know that other school systems in the area are closing early. Still no word on district schools and what's happening with those children.
Alexandria school officials say they are not going to close early, but they say their students are staying inside the buildings during recess. Colleges are closing all over the place. George Washington University canceled all classes today and evening classes as well. Howard University has closed, and many of the other institutions of higher learning around the city have all closed today. We have reporters at different sites all over the area. Tony Dorsey, I believe, is at National Airport, right? Tony, what's the word from there?
We're at Reagan National Airport, where, as you can imagine, it is very tense here. A few minutes ago, someone came up this access road right off Crystal City, Route 1, and started screaming, telling everybody to get down, get down, get down. Apparently, authorities told some people to get down. They thought that a rogue aircraft was headed our way. People got out of their vehicles. You can see them looking tense, looking confused. They got out of their vehicles. They ducked beside their cars and SUVs and trucks, and they looked skyward, looking for something to fall out of the sky. But fortunately, nothing happened. We didn't see anything. The Pentagon, of course, just less than a couple of miles from here. There was a complete and total evacuation of this airport. A few hundred people, I would imagine, several hundred people, employees of the airport, people who were in their aircraft getting ready to take off, who were on the runway getting ready to take off, were told to return to the airport and to have all of their passengers exit the terminals and get out of the airport. Lots of people walked. They had no other way to get out of here. There was a mass exodus. Obviously, with the Pentagon hit so very close from here, authorities suspected that this was going to be another target. They brought in some giant fire trucks with foam in them. They brought in other emergency equipment to prepare for any possibility. Security has literally shut down this airport. No one can get in, no one can get out at this point other than the people who are being evacuated. But at this point, as you can see, there's a few cars literally down by the, now we're seeing some people running. We're seeing some, we're seeing a security official telling people to put his, throwing hands down, hands down. We're not sure exactly. We're hearing something now. We're hearing what sounds to be an aircraft approaching the area, but I think it's a metro train that we see passing by, but it sounded like aircraft in the air. We know that no aircraft is supposed to be inside of this area. Now, there is a jet. There's a military jet. I know you can see it now. There's a military jet flying above us here at Reagan National Airport right now. Obviously, we're hoping at this point that this is a U.S. military aircraft flying right above Reagan National Airport. He is climbing in altitude. We don't know where this aircraft came from, but this aircraft obviously on a mission somewhere, leaving this Reagan National Airport area very, very fast. Now circling back, it seems, toward us. We've had a very tense situation here, as I said, at Reagan National Airport. The entire airport not only shut down, but evacuated. We know that airports all across this country have been shut down, but this airport here at Reagan National, so close to the Pentagon, has been evacuated. And the situation obviously remains very tense. We've got federal authorities who have shut down the airport, no access into the airport, everybody being told to get out. Traffic has stopped on Route 1. It's bumper to bumper. People literally standing outside their cars now, waiting for instructions, trying to figure out exactly what to do next. You can see some of the people behind me here standing, waiting, hoping that the situation gets better. Back to you in the studio.
Tony Dorsey, thank you. We appreciate it. We have some information now. Bob Hager of NBC News reports and/or confirms that American Airlines Flight 77, the Boeing 757 out of Dulles Airport bound for Los Angeles, is the one that crashed near the Pentagon this morning. Flight 77 from Dulles Airport is the one that crashed into the Pentagon, and once again, the American Airlines has a response number that they say you can call if you're concerned about any more information about that. That number is 1-800-245-0999. American Airlines Flight 77 is the one. There is the number now, 1-800-245-0999. That was the flight that was out of Dulles Airport this morning bound for Los Angeles, and it is the one that apparently, as far as we can determine now, was hijacked and then crashed very near the Pentagon this morning.
People have to be patient if they're trying to get through, not only on that phone line, but on any phone line right now. People all over the nation and all over the world are calling each other right now to make sure people are okay and find out what's happening with all sorts of things. And phones are very slow, very tied up. Cell phones are not working. We hear lots of things are just not working the way they should.
Verizon reports, in fact, unprecedented use of cell phones at this time, as you might imagine. We also have some information here from the Virginia Hospital Center, which lets us know that they have 22 of the victims from the Pentagon airplane crash this morning. 22 of the victims, 22 of the casualties, people who were at the Pentagon this morning when that Boeing 757 crashed near the Pentagon this morning, are now at Virginia Hospital Center, and we'll be bringing you more details in terms of where the injured have been taken as soon as that information becomes available to us. Once again, all kinds of facilities and institutions have been shut down today. We can tell you that D.C. public schools remain open. Prince George's County schools are not closed, but they tell us that classes are closing 2 hours early.
We understand right now we have on the telephone a spokesperson for Metro. Are you with us, Stephen Taub?
Yes.
Can you tell us, Mr. Taub, how what's happening with Metro today?
Well, as of right now, Doreen, what we're doing is that we are diverting our Yellow Line trains. We have Yellow Line service right now that is operating from Huntington over to Stadium Armory. The Yellow Line trains are being diverted onto the Blue Line tracks, operating from Huntington to Stadium Armory. And on the opposite end, Yellow Line service from Mount Vernon Square down to Branch Avenue. As of right now, we have those trains on the Yellow Line from Huntington to Stadium Armory are operating on the Blue Line, and they are passing through our National Airport and Pentagon stations. Those two stations are closed at this time. Both National Airport and Pentagon are closed at this time.
And how is that affecting all the other lines?
All other lines right now, Red Line service, Orange Line service, and the Blue Line service, Green Line service, all other lines are operating as under normal schedules right now.
Mr. Taub, some people may be concerned or nervous about getting on Metro in light of what's happening. Is Metro taking extra security precautions? I mean, what would you say to commuters?
We've taken extra security precautions. We are on a heightened state of alert right now, and we have all personnel available to assist with customers that if they do need to get home, we are available to provide service right now.
Is Metro safe?
Yes.
All right. Thank you, Stephen Taub, spokesperson for Metro, joining us on the phone now.
Earlier this morning, we heard from correspondents at the White House as they were very abruptly rushed out of the White House across the street into Lafayette Park this morning because the White House, as you might expect, was evacuated as soon as these things started to happen. James Adams is down near the White House now to give us a situation there at this point. James?
Well, Jim, the White House evacuation actually took place around 10 o'clock this morning. We're on the south side of the White House now, and as you can see, nothing but security personnel, a number of bystanders, people just looking on, waiting, watching, wondering. Every time a plane goes overhead, and they are military planes, if we see them, heads go to the sky. And the security vehicles continue swinging around from 14th Street to 17th Street.